Hello friends, welcome to this session of Verbal. In this session we'll look at the text completion question of type 2, that is 2 blanks. So the strategy that we have seen so far is still applicable, and I hope you have mastered the strategy very well in the last two sessions. So let's look at a little different type of way in which the strategy can be applied. Look at this practice problem, please give it a thought. Okay, so what are the two ideas here? The first idea is it is dash that so many portraits, paintings hang in the art museum. So the author has some kind of observation regarding the paintings, portrait paintings being in the art museum, because there is a keyword here, because the author believes that the subject matter, that means the person whose painting it is talking about, seems to dictate a status closer to pictures in the family photograph album than to high art. So he means that it looks like they belong more to family photographs than high art. So the word he is talking here should gel with the author's idea that he doesn't find the portrait paintings to be a good place in museums. Okay, so it's going to be some kind of negative word. The second idea here is but perhaps it is the artistic skill with which the portraits are painted. So he believes that the portraits are painted very well. So it is that skill with which it has been painted that dash their presence in the museum. So this has to be some kind of a word that will justify their presence in the art museums. So this has to be a positive word. Okay. The intended meaning here, this and this are opposite ideas, because we have a but perhaps here, and this word is negative. It is something, what would be the intended word here? Intended meaning would be, it is so many portrait, since it is not logical, for example, something like not logical, and here it is something like that, prove their place or justify or something like that. Okay, so let's look at the answer options. Blank 1, surprising. Will surprising go here in this context? So it is surprising that I find so many paintings in the museum, because paintings should actually belong to family photograph than in museums. Yes, surprising again, kind of gives us the same meaning as not logical, right? So when you get surprised because something that you don't expect, or something that is not logical, unexpected something. So surprise is a good fit here. Understandable, in fact he does not understand why there are so many portraits in the museum. So understandable is not correct. Irrelevant, in fact this option is quite irrelevant, pun intended. So this option, he is not talking about the portrait being relevant in the museum or not. So this is also not correct. The correct answer here would be A. Let's look at blank 2, challenges. It has to be a positive word, we saw here. So challenges is a negative word, it will not go. Justify, yes, that is the type of word we are looking for. So he is trying to justify why or rather he is trying to reason out why why so many paintings are present in the museum, and he says that it is probably because of the skill with which they have been painted. So justify goes here. Changes is quite irrelevant. So the correct answer here is surprising and justify, A and E. Let's look at this one, please give it a try. Okay, what are the two ideas here? First idea, in stark contrast to his later, let's say some quality here, X, Simpson was largely, it has to be opposite of X, right? In stark contrast, he is already saying, so there is a contrast between this quality and this quality. Okay, the Simpson was largely X, opposite of X, politics during his college days. despite the fact that the campus he attended was rife with political activity. So the first thing is, the author in his later days was X, in earlier days was opposite of X. Okay, the second idea is, the college that he attended, that means in his youth, the place that he was in was rife with political activity. Okay, that means it was easy, it was brewing with political activity, so it is very easy for him to do political activity, but there is a despite here, right? So that means the campus atmosphere and his personality are opposite because of this despite. Okay, so that means he is not going to be interested in politics, right? So that means we get opposite of X, this quality is not interested in politics, something like that. Okay, and obviously X is going to be something interested in politics. Okay, let's look at the option activism. In stark contrast to his later activism, Simpson was largely not active in politics during college days. Yes, activism goes in this context. Apathy, no, apathy is not correct word, because this word, see, like again, look at this. So this is despite, so this means opposite or not interested, and this means interested. So this has to be positive word, this has to be a negative word. So apathy is a negative word, so it will not go in the first blank. Okay, if it was fitting for the second blank, if this was in one of the options here, we would have thought about it. Affability is not relevant here. Let's look at second blank, something like not interested in politics. Devoted to, completely opposite. Indifferent to, yes, indifferent to is what we are looking for. Shaped by is positive, we are looking for a negative word, so that is not correct. So the correct answers here are A and E. Let's put both of them back here and see if they make sense. In stark contrast to his later activism, Simpson was largely indifferent to political activities during his college years, despite the fact that the campus that he attended was rife with political activity. Let's move to this one. Please give it a thought. Okay, what are the key ideas here? First is political advertising may well be the most dash kind of advertising, and there is a colon. That means we are going to have some examples. So the author believes that the political advertising is dash, and he goes on to explain that political candidates are usually quite dash. Okay, political candidates are dash, yet that means there is a reversal of thought, yet their campaign advertisements often hide important differences. Okay, that means what he means to say is behind smoke screens of smiles and empty slogans. Okay, that is not relevant to the argument. What he says is, just only start from here. Political candidates are usually dash, but their campaigns often hide important differences. That means this word here is exactly opposite of differences, something highlighting similarities. Okay, something related to similarities. And is that going to be a negative word or positive word? In fact, the author says that they are not actually similar, or in fact what the author says is that they are different, and the campaigns are hiding their differences. So it's not going to be similar, it's in fact going to be not similar. Okay, it's going to be not similar. And the first one is, he's talking about the quality of political advertising. And what is he talking about political advertising here? Political advertisements often hide. So this word here, the first word, is going to relate to hiding. Okay, let's look at the option. We are looking for the first blank, we are looking for hiding. What do we have? We have polemical is not hiding, effective is not hiding, deceptive is hiding, so we select deceptive. What are we looking for in second word? We are looking for something like not similar. Interchangeable will mean something like similar, is not correct. Dissimilar is what we are looking for. vocal, this is quite irrelevant. So the correct answer here is C and E. Let's put both these options back and see if that makes sense. Political advertising may well be the most deceptive kind of advertising because political candidates are usually very similar or usually quite dissimilar. Okay, yet their political candidates are usually quite dissimilar, yet their campaign advertisements often hide these differences. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Please give it a try. What is the first idea here? The first idea is this: everyone has routines that govern their work. Second idea is it is a myth. That means it is not true that artists are somehow different. That means it says that artists, it is not true that artists are different. That means artists also follow routine. It is a myth that artists are different and they reject dash. So this reject has to relate to the routines. Okay, so this has to be something like routine. But of course, again reversal of thought, but of course that is not true. Most artists work as the rest of us do. That means they follow routine. Okay, they work routinely. There's no words such as routinely, but this just for simplicity I am highlighting this routine factor. So they do work as if it is a routine day by day according to their own customs. Okay, so let's look at first blank now. We are looking for something like routine, latitude, habit, materialism. Latitude is not correct, materialism is not correct. Habit goes with routine, so we select habit. Here we are looking for most artists work as the rest of us do, and if we are following a routine, how are we going to work? We are going to work in a routine way. So impetuously is not correct. Ploddingly means in an unexciting fashion, slow and unexciting. Okay, so that goes with routine. So when we are following our routine, we are not really excited. We're just kind of working because it just has to be done on a daily basis. Sporadically is irrelevant. So the correct answer here is habit and ploddingly. Let's put them back and see if it makes sense. Everyone has routines that govern their work. In fact, the myth is that artists are somehow different, but that is not true. It is a myth that they reject habits, they reject routine, but of course that is not true. Most artists work as the rest of us do, slowly and unexcitedly, day by day, according to their own customs. So both these answers make sense, and that is the correct answer. Let's look at this one. Please give it a thought. Okay, what are the ideas here? The first idea is this guy Belanger dances with some quality here that draws one's attention as if by seeking to dash it. Okay, so this it is the attention. Okay, so he dances with some quality that draws one's attention as if by seeking to dash it. Now what is the second idea? The second idea is through finesse and understatement, he manages to seem at once intensely present and curiously detached. Now look at the contrast here. Detached and present, and he is managing to be both at the same time. Okay, so there has to be some contrast, and there is a colon here, and we don't have any pivot word that is taking us our thought in a different direction. So that means both these sentences have to reflect the same thought, and the thought that is coming out of the second sentence is that there is some contradictory aspect in his dancing. Okay, now look at this. He dances in such a way that such a way is the first blank. He dances in such a way that it draws one's attention as if by seeking to. So his dancing is drawing attention. Okay, and there has to be some kind of a contrast, right? So that means the second word is some kind of word that would not otherwise draw an attention, and that is how the contrast is coming out. So let's look at blank 2. Okay, and also this has to be some kind of negative word which does not usually go with uh, attention seeking. No attention seeking word. Okay, this is the first word, second word. The first word is going to be something that will draw out this contradiction in the first sentence. Okay, so let's fix the second one first. Focus is a positive word. Overwhelm is negative. Okay, but does it mean no attention seeking? No, in fact, yeah, in this context overwhelm is positive because overwhelm someone's attention, so that is in this context positive. We are not looking for positive words. Deflect is a negative word, and he dances in such a way that his way of dancing draws one's attention as if by seeking to deflect it. So that brings out the context. So deflect would be a good choice here. Which of these three will bring out that contrast best? Undemonstrative panache. Yes, it is undemonstrative panache. Okay, we can't really analyze that. Unrestrained enthusiasm. If he's dancing with unrestrained enthusiasm, then if you put it back here, you can say Belanger dances with unrestrained enthusiasm that draws one's attention as if by seeking to deflect it. So restrained enthusiasm does not go with deflecting. That is not correct. Unattractive gawkiness does not go with deflecting again. That is not correct. Undemonstrative panache. So it is some kind of skill. Panache means style or flamboyance. He has some kind of flamboyance, and it is undemonstrative. So it's not usually something that is demonstrable. Undemonstrative flamboyance, but he does it in such a way that it draws people's attention. So he basically pretends to not draw attention, but he ultimately ends up drawing attention, and that is the contrast. Okay, so the correct answer here is A and F. Let's move to this one. What is the first idea here? This is some kind of a survey, the work of nature. Okay, and the survey is brief. This is the first idea, brief. Second one, it is so brief, it is brief and it is surprisingly dash. That means this is some quality that will not go with brief. Usually not go with brief. Otherwise it would not have been surprising. Okay, not go with brief. Indeed, it makes much longer treatments. So now we are comparing this survey with longer treatments. That means bigger books or bigger surveys or stuff like that, or more detailed analysis on similar lines. So indeed, it makes several longer treatments of the effects of lost biodiversity seem dash. So it is brief and it is making this longer treatments dash. Okay, so what is this? See, if you look at this is brief and we are comparing it with long treatments. Okay, so usually, and there is some surprise factor here. So usually if you are talking about one small book versus a big book, you expect that the small book is not very convincing or not really very detailed oriented. Okay, but in this case it is a surprise that the small one is better. Okay, so this has to be something like some quality that does not go with brief and some kind of a positive quantity, right? So has to be some kind of positive quantity. Indeed, it makes several longer treatments in the effects of biodiversity seem dash. So this has to be a negative quantity. Okay, and this positive and this negative have to be opposites. Okay, now let's look at the options. What is the positive quantity here? Distorted is negative. Objective is neutral as such. Okay, comprehensive positive. It says that it is a brief survey, but it is surprisingly comprehensive, something that doesn't go with brief usually brief things are not comprehensive. Comprehensive is correct. Which of these three will exhibit contrast with comprehensive, redundant. It is saying that it is the small book is so comprehensive that it is making longer or bigger books redundant. So this redundant will go in this context. Pithy, pithy means small, so it makes longer treatment small, doesn't make sense. Premature, we are not talking about maturity of the longer treatments, so that is wrong. The correct one is D. Let's put them back here. The answer is CD. Let's put both these options back. The brief survey is so surprisingly comprehensive that it makes several longer treatments of the same subject seem redundant. Okay, so these two make sense and the correct answer is CD. Let's move to this one. First one, the government has no choice but to dash the incessant demands. So there have been some demands for long land reform. That is the first fact here. Second one, yet, so the government has to do something to these demands, but thought reversal here. Any government action that initiated the land reform. Okay, now here talking about initiating land reform. Okay, so that means this has to be something that talks about initiate land reform. Okay, so any government action that initiated land reform without requisite attention to agrarian reform would dash the overall growth, goal of the economic modernization. Okay, so this word here is something like initiate, will indicate that government is initiating that reform. So government is doing something to the incessant demand, and ultimately the result is initiation of the reform. So that means the government is accepting those demands, right? So which of the word is accepting? The correct answer here would be D. Anticipate. You don't anticipate demands. You don't. If you silence demands, then you are not going to have this reform that we are talking about here. Okay, so the silence would not be a good fit. In fact, that would be opposite. So correct answer here would be B. So government is now accepting the demands, and the author says that if the government accepts this demand and initiates land reform without requisite attention to agrarian reforms, okay, so without paying attention to these agrarian reforms, which is a necessity, what would it do? It would do something negative. That is what the logical flow of the argument is. So this has to be a negative word. Okay, so delineate, condone or compromise. Now delineate is a very negative word. Condone is also a negative word. Compromise also a negative word. But which of these will go in this context? So we are saying that obviously we are doing some kind of reform. Okay, so it has to be good. It is not completely negative. But without one reform doing one reform without the second reform will not be a balanced economic modernization. This is what he's saying. So we need a subtly negative word, and that word, the best one that we can have here is compromise. So yes, you're only selecting one land reform. We are improving only one thing. You're not improving the other thing, and somehow you're compromising with the overall growth. So compromise again, tries to deal with the tension between agrarian and land reform, right? So we are compromising somewhere, and that is the effect that the author wants to come out. So the correct answer is BF. Okay. Now let's put this again back in and see if that makes sense. The government has no choice but to heed. That means accept the incessant demand for land reform. But if they accept the land reform and initiate land reform without the required attention to agrarian reform, we are going to compromise the overall goal of economic modernization. So the meaning of the sentence definitely come out with this choice, and this is the correct choice. Let's look at this one. What are the two ideas here? First one, the activist was energetic in two areas, women suffrage first and temperance movement. So he was active in both in the late 19th century. That is the first idea here. Both areas active. Okay. And his being active in both areas dash the assertion. That means either it uh, his participation in both these activities, either it gives a positive supports the assertion or rejects the assertion. So it has to be either positive or negative. Okay, that the two movements were dash. So if this is positive, let's say if it supports the assertion, this is, let's say, support. Okay, so if his participation in two activities supports the assertion that two movements were, then what would be here? We will also have a positive word. So if it is support, okay, so we'll have movements were similar or correlated or something like that. Okay, now if we have a negative word, let's say rejects the assertion. Okay, rejects the assumption that the two movements were dash. So it would be dissimilar. Something like that. So now we'll look at answer choices, because both these ideas are possible. So what answer choice we have, which is both positive positive or both negative negative? Okay, if we choose support, we need a positive word here, predominant. Both the two movements were predominant. No, actually they could be predominant, but we are talking about their correlation, whether they are dissimilar or similar. So if we choose support, then diffuse, inimical, predominant, none of them goes. So support cannot be true. So we are looking for something like rejects. Okay, so rejects is undermines, underscores is again supports. So that is wrong. Undermines, if this is undermines means this is reject. So we are looking for something like dissimilar. So diffuse is not correct. Predominant is also not correct. Inimical would actually mean unfriendly in this context. So they are unfriendly, which goes with dissimilar. So we go with this. Now let's put it back. So answer here is AE. Let's put these options back here and see if that makes sense. The activist energetic work in both women's suffrage and temperance movement undermine, that means rejects the assertion that the two movements were unfriendly. That means the two movements were completely different. In fact, they were very friendly, they were very correlated, and that is why, and there is a proof that this person, this activities has worked in both of them, and that is why it rejects the assertion that the movements were not correlated. So correct answer is AE. Let's look at this one. The first piece of information is certain music lovers yearn for dash some quality, but reversal of thought, but when it is achieved. Okay, so this quality is something that can be achieved. Okay, if this is something that can be achieved, good quality, that means it's a good quality, achievable. Okay, but when this quality is achieved, perhaps they feel uncomfortable in a world where nothing discernible is dash. So achieving this quality makes them uncomfortable, and there is some word that completes the meaning here. Okay, let's look at these option one, the blank ones first. Blank one has to mean something, a good quality that is achievable. Novelty is not a good quality that is achievable. You cannot achieve novelty. So this is not correct. Also beauty, okay, beauty cannot be achieved as such. Okay, so this is not correct. Flawlessness. Now let's look at flawlessness. Flawlessness can be achieved. Yes, if the flawlessness is achieved, let's say we can put this answer here, word choice here. Certain music lovers yearn for flawlessness, but when flawlessness is achieved, there is something missing. Perhaps they feel uncomfortable in a world where nothing is dash. Okay, so now they are flawless, but they are still uncomfortable because they are uncomfortable in this world whereas nothing is dash. So if they are flawless in their music, then the nothing is some kind of negative word. Nothing is something like a flaw. In a flawless world there is no flaw, right? So what kind of word will go with a flaw here? Wrong, visionary positive word, changed, doesn't make sense. So something that relates to flaw is wrong. So flawlessness and wrong would be a good fit. Let's look at see if put it back and see if that is the correct answer. Certain music lovers yearn for flawlessness, but when flawlessness is achieved, there is something missing. Perhaps they feel uncomfortable in the world where nothing discernible is wrong. So they don't do anything wrong, but they are not comfortable in that because when they become flawless. Okay, so that is the idea here. The correct answer is CD. Okay, what are the two ideas here? The dash of Vladimir Nabokov as one of America's literary giants has thrown the spotlight on his peripheral activities. Okay, so this guy is first of all dash some good quality. Okay, or we don't know if it is good or not. Some quality of this literary giant. Okay, has thrown the spotlight on his peripheral activities. This is the first sentence. Second, and this spotlight has served to dash his efforts as an amateur entomologist. Okay, so this guy was a literary giant and he was an amateur entomologist, and because of his being a giant, there has been a spotlight on his peripheral activities. So what is this word here? So this word has to be something as an effect of spotlight. Because of this spotlight, it has served to bring to light his efforts as amateur entomologist. So bring to light or something like that. Bring to light. Okay, so look at this blank 2. Foreground, transcend, obscure. Obscure is wrong. It's completely opposite. Transcend doesn't make sense in this. It's basically taking from one place to another. It doesn't make sense here. Foreground is the correct fit. Okay, so now let's choose foreground for second blank and reread this. So what do we get? The dash of Vladimir Nabokov as one of the North America's literary giant has thrown spotlight on his peripheral activities and served to foreground his efforts as amateur entomologist. So that is correct. Now let's look at this. Is this a positive thing or a negative thing? Will people be interested in a literary giant that has some negative quality? Okay, it has to be a positive quality to begin with. Otherwise, you would not be worrying about that person's other peripheral activities. So it has to be positive quality. Stigmatization is negative. Marginalization is negative. Lionization is the only, that means praising. So lionization is the only positive quantity. So we have B and D. Okay, so let's put them back here. The lionization of this guy as one of the literary giants has thrown the spotlight on his peripheral activities also, and this spotlight has served to bring to foreground his efforts as an amateur entomologist. So this makes sense. The correct answer is BD. Let's move to this one. Please give it a try. So what are the 2 points here? The first one is, like Bella Bartok, Ruth Crawford not only brought a composer's acumen to the notation of folk music, but she also had a marked dash for the task. So we are talking about 2 women here, one Bella and one Ruth, and both of them are trying to do some work in notation of folk music, and both of them brought a composer's acumen. But Ruth, apart from the composer's acumen, she also brought something here. So that is the first sentence. This was clear in her agonizing over how far to try to represent the minute details of a performance in a written text. Now she is very particular about small details. Okay, that is one thing that is coming out of the second aspect. And this dash, so this word here is referring to attention to detail. So this has to be something like attention to detail. Attention to detail. This attention to detail makes her work a landmark in ethnomusicology. Okay, and what would be a word here? Now obviously this word has to be positive in meaning because we are talking about some good quality. So she has brought a composer's acumen, and she has also brought something positive to the task, and that positive to the task, this idea has to relate to the second idea, that she was very particular, and the second word in itself is attention to detail. So let's look at the second word first, because we have a clear definition of this. Which of these three words means attention to detail? Fastidiousness. Fastidiousness is difficult to please or very particular about things. Okay, so fastidiousness goes exactly in this space. Didacticism, not really. Iconoclasm, we are not talking about anything iconoclastic, nothing that is not following a convention or anything like that. So this is not correct. Fastidiousness goes here. Let's look at the blank one. We are looking for a positive quality that would justify her attention to detail. So was it her reverence for a task? It's a positive quantity. Detachment from, detachment is negative, so this is not going to be correct. Curiosity about, curiosity about is also positive. But now between A and C, which of these options will justify her extreme attention to detail? So if you are curious, you are not necessarily going to be very fastidious and going to have going to go all the way to represent minute details. So curiosity is not sufficient. Reverence for, yes, it is more positive than curiosity. And if you are if you have a lot of reverence, respect for your work, then you will go to any length to represent the minute details. So reverence for goes in this context. So correct answer here is A and D. Let's put both these back here. Like Bella, Ruth not only brought a composer's acumen to the notation of folk music, but she also had a great deal of respect for the task. This is clear for in her agonizing over how far to try to represent the minute details of a performance in a written text, and this attention to detail or fastidiousness makes her work a landmark in ethnomusicography. So this AD makes sense. The correct answer is reverence for and fastidiousness. Let's move to this one. Please give it a try. What are the facts here? The first one, in her later years, Bertha was an apostle of noble but already dashed notions. Okay, and this is the first thought. Second thought is she was always respected for her integrity, her energy and her resolve, but in her later years increasingly she became out of step and ultimately something even her own organization. So we'll see that there are in each of these sentences. Let's look at this. The first one, Bertha was an apostle of noble but already dash notions. So this is a positive word. So we have a but here. So that means this word has to be negative. There has to be some negative quality of Bertha that we are talking about. And she was all, look at the second idea, always respected for her integrity, her energy and her resolve. So these are all good qualities, but now she was increasingly something negative. Out of step is negative, and ultimately this word also has to be negative, right? And it also has to relate to her something from the organization. Okay, so let's look at it. We need a negative word for the first blank. Anachronistic is negative. Accepted is positive, not correct. Exotic is positive, not correct. So an anachronistic is going to be a good fit here. Also let's look at blank 2. Emulated by is something positive. Appreciated by positive. Alienated from, yes, alienated from is negative, so we are going to select that. So correct answer here is A and F. Okay, so let's put it back here. Let's see if that makes sense. In her later years, Bertha was an apostle of noble but already anachronistic. Okay, now let's also look at see whether this anachronistic makes these two ideas parallel. So she was anachronistic, something negative, and she was always respected for her integrity and energy and resolve. But in later years, it was her anachronistic being anachronistic that increasingly made her go out of the step and ultimately alienated her from her own organization. So this story makes sense. The correct answer is AF. Let's look at this one. Please give it a try. The first idea is Serling's account of his employer's reckless decision making. The first idea is here. The employer is reckless. So employee is something negative. Right. Second idea is his story about the negativeness of his employer dash that. So either it supports or rejects. So we don't know whether this is positive or negative. But that company's image as dash bureaucracy full of very managers. So the image company has is currently either this word is either supports or rejects. Okay, but second idea is starts here. The company's image as is now is dash bureaucracy full of very managers. Now if you look at this, very means cautious, so something good. So that means it says that the company's image is some good bureaucracy of cautious managers. Okay, and this is very managers, one image. Okay, and what does this what does Serling's account say? Serling's account says that employers are reckless. Okay, so and this relationship between these two, this is positive, this is negative, not a good word, this is a good word. Okay, so that means this is opposite ideas we are talking about. So his account is not going to support the company's image. His account is going to reject the company's image. So we are looking for a negative word here. Okay, so let's look at belies, exposes, overshadows. Overshadows would be out of context. Exposes, if it is exposes, then Serling's story is not going to expose good quality of, because this part here is good quality, right? So expose is not going to make a fit. Belies, now belies means rejects or defies. So belies is going to be correct answer here. The story that shows employers' recklessness belies the company's image as something good. Okay, now let's look at option 2, blank 2. So we are looking for something positive word, and the key word here is very. So very means cautious. So this word has to be something related to very. So first of all, this is a negative word, so that is wrong. Injudicious, negative word, that is wrong. We need a positive word, and that has to relate to this very managers. So cautious is the best fit. So the correct answer is AF. Let's put the answer back here. Serling's account of his employees' reckless decision making belies that company's image as a cautious bureaucracy full of very managers. It brings out the exact meaning out of the sentence, and the correct answer is AF. Let's move to this one. Please give it a try. So what are the ideas here? There are two ideas, and the keyword here is ironically. So that means both these ideas have to bring about two different aspects. Okay, ironically, the writer was so wary of dash, so he had some quality here. Okay, some quality was dash. He usually exhibits this quality, but ironically now he was this. So these both these blanks have to be opposites in meaning. He was dash with ink and paper. His novel running to 2500 pages of fortune in stationery at the time. So that means he was very liberal with ink and paper. Okay, so something like liberal, or not exactly liberal, something that shows that he spent a lot of money on this. Okay, and this first blank is going to be opposite of that. So let's start from the second one. Acquisitive, illiberal, profligate. Illiberal is exactly opposite of what we are looking for. Acquisitive is not really relevant here. So profligate means spending a lot of money. So profligate makes good sense here. He was spending a lot of money with ink and paper, and his novel actually ran into 2500 pages, and it was considered a fortune. So another keyword here is fortune. Okay, so profligate is correct one. So if he was profligate and the first idea is opposite of the second idea, so that means here he has to be not profligate. That means he has to be not spending a lot of money. This has to be not spending money. Okay, so let's look at the option choices. Probity has nothing to do with money. Extravagance, yes, extravagance is not spending. uh, okay, now yes, one thing I missed was this very. So he was wary of spending money. It's not spending money. Very itself, if you consider this very, it's writer was so wary of spending money is the quality that is opposite of spending a lot of money on this ink and paper. So extravagance is the good fit here. Disapprobation, the moral disapproval, it doesn't have to do any, doesn't have anything to do with this in this context. So extravagance and profligate, BF, are the correct answer choices. Let's put them back here. Ironically, the writer was writer who was so wary of, so cautious about extravagance, so cautious about spending money, was very liberal or very profligate when it came to ink and paper, because his novel ran into 2500 pages, which was a lot of money, which would have cost him a lot of money basically. So B and F is the correct answer. Let's look at this one. Okay, what are the ideas here? The incipient, that means forthcoming. The incipient dash regarding taxes could affect trade between the two countries. Okay, much more than the dash, banana imports. This is the first idea. So there is something going to happen here, because it is impeding, something is going to happen that is going to affect the trade. So first of all, it probably is going to be a negative word. Okay, unfortunately, the trade regulators seem to be ignoring both disagreements. Now he is talking about both. So what are those both disagreements? He is talking about trade between two countries first, and he is also talking about, or rather, he is talking about the first one. He is talking about this part. The incipient dash is the first thing, and the second thing is the dash of banana imports. Okay, and he calls both these things as disagreements. So that means both these things have to be negative, and both have to be similar in meaning to disagreement. Okay, so let's look at blank one. Row, accord is positive word, remove. Investigation is irrelevant. Row can be called a disagreement, so row is correct. For second blank, profitable dealing in, no. Predicament regarding festering dispute over. Predicament is not necessarily a disagreement, it's some kind of a problem, it's not necessarily a disagreement, whereas festering dispute over, dispute is a disagreement. So we select F. So the correct answer is A and F. Let's put these answer choices back. The incipient row regarding taxes could affect trade between two countries much more than the festering dispute over banana imports, which has been going on for years. Unfortunately, the trade regulators seem to be ignoring both the disagreements. So they are ignoring this row, also they are ignoring this festering dispute. So AF is the correct answer. So look at this one, give it a try. Okay, the sentence starts with unlike, so we are going to have one idea opposing the other idea. The problems in recent financial scandals, so there have been some problems in recent times, recent financial scandal. Okay, issues raised by the regulators in this case appear largely to pertain to unwieldy accounting rules that are open to interpretations. Okay, so it is unlike most of the problems that we have seen recently. The issues in this problem are related to accounting, and they are not related to, first of all, this transaction designed to dash corporate malfeasance. Okay, so that means usually this blank 1 and blank 2 are the issues that we have seen in most of the recent financial scandals. Okay, but whereas this financial scandal, we don't see these issues, we see accounting issues, accounting related issues, because accounting rules are open to interpretations. This is what the two ideas are. Okay, so let's look at this. What would be this one? Both of these combined should indicate that there is some kind of financial scandal. both of these combined to indicate that there is some kind of financial scandal, or they are basically characteristics of a financial scandal. Okay, let's look at only this part now. Transactions designed to dash corporate malfeasance. Now, if you are trying to do some financial scandal, and what would you do to corporate malfeasance? So you would obviously not want to show it. You would somehow try to cover it, or you'll want to hide it, right? So we want an effect word in this effect, so something like hide. And not to dash transactions. These are transactions, typical characteristics of transactions in a financial scandal. So what is this? This is going to be fake transactions, something like that, some negative quality. Okay, so let's look at the second word first. Cloak, ameliorate and illuminate. So we want something like hide, so cloak goes in this context. We select this one. For the first blank, we want something like fake, sham, unpremeditated, justifiable. Okay, so sham goes well in this context. If it was premeditated, we would have thought about it. It is unpremeditated. Justifiable obviously is not correct. So the correct answer here is A and D. Let's put the answer back here. Unlike the problems in recent financial scandals, issues raised by the regulators in this case appear largely to pertain to unwieldy accounting rules that are open to interpretations, and the issues are not related to sham transactions designed to cloak corporate malfeasance. Correct. So this brings out the meaning in the sentence. So correct answer is AD. Let's move to this one. Please give it a try. So what are the facts here? The first one is there is nothing quite like this movie. Okay, and indeed I am not altogether sure there is much more to it than it's lovely, this thing. So this characteristic, this quality is lovely, so it has to be a positive word. Okay, and so this is a positive word. The first idea is it's a very nothing quite like this movie, so it's some kind of a unique movie. First idea is unique movie, and that's all there is to it. Apart from this quality, there is not really anything much more to it. So it's a unique movie with this kind of positive quality. Okay, the second fact is, at a moment when so many films strive to be as dash as possible, it is gratifying to find one that is so subtle and puzzling. So obviously this second one is contrasting with subtle and puzzling. Okay, so let's start from blank one. Indirect, assertive and enigmatic. Enigmatic is same as puzzling, and we need a contrast, so that is not correct. Indirect is irrelevant here. We are not talking about whether the movies, other movies are trying to be indirect, whereas this movie is trying to be direct. Right? If it was explicit, that would have shown contrast with subtle, but this is indirect, so that is not relevant. Correct answer is here is assertive. Okay, so assertive here would mean some positive self-assuring kind of a movie. Okay, or rather other movies are trying to be very self-assuring, whereas this one is very puzzling and subtle. So that is the meaning that the author wants to come out. Okay, let's look at first one. We are looking for positive quality, that is very unique because it's a unique movie. So conventionality is not going to make this movie unique, so that's not correct. Pellucidity means transparency. So transparency, yes, this is a positive quality, but it does not relate in this context. It's not something very unique. Also, another thing is that these two pieces of the question, the sentence, both the sentences actually, these two ideas have to show some kind of coherence. So this pellucidity, transparency does not relate at all to this part of the sentence, right? So that is not going to be correct. Peculiarity, yes, peculiarity would touch upon the puzzling concept of the second idea, right? So that means that peculiarity, if you have this word here, it is going to, this sentence as a whole is going to relate to this sentence as a whole. So peculiarity is the correct answer. So the answer would be A and F. Let's look at the sentence after putting these two answer choices. There is nothing quite like this movie. This movie is very unique, and I'm not really sure if there is anything more than peculiarity in this movie, but the peculiarity is very lovely. In fact, it is very gratifying to see a movie like this, which is subtle and puzzling, when most of the other movies are trying to be simply self-assuring or assertive. So that is the meaning here, and the correct answer is AF. Let's look at this one. First idea here: human nature and long distances have made exceeding the speed limit a dash in the state. Okay, that is the, it is talking about breaking speed limits, rather exceeding the speed limits. Speed limit breaking is something good, something. Okay, this is this word. Now, is this a positive or a negative word? Okay, so we know that there are long distances, and it is human nature it is talking about. So if you, with respect to exceeding the speed limit, if you apply these two factors, human nature and long distances, then obviously if you are long distances, you are naturally, that means it is your nature to incline to exceed speed limit. So it is this long distances and human nature have made exceeding speed limit a regular practice, something like that. Okay, also if you look at the answer choices, one clue: habit, tradition and ritual. So all these are talking about positive, so this word has to be positive, something like a regular practice. Okay, regular practice. So if it is exceeding speed limit is considered regular practice. Now let's look at the second idea. It is the first idea, speed limit is considered exceeding speed limit is considered regular practice. So the legislator surprised no one when acceding to the public demand. If exceeding speed limit is a regular practice, people are going to, what is going to be the people's demand? People's demand is going to be in favor of exceeding speed limits. Okay, so the legislator surprised no one when acceding to the public demand, they dash increased penalties for speeding. So what is, if exceeding speed limit is a regular practice, so what is going to be people's demand with respect to increased penalties? So they are going to reject the increased penalties, right? So acceding to the public demand, the legislature surprised no one when they rejected the increased penalties for speeding, right? So this is going to be the meaning here. Let's look at blank 2. Blank 2, it says endorsed, doesn't go with reject, considered, not reject, rejected, correct, perfect fit. So we select rejected. And also let's look at this option now. Habit, tradition, ritual all indicate regular practice. So we now have to select something from this. Controversial, there is nothing in the sentence that makes us believe that this is a controversial habit. Disquieting, again it's a negative word. We don't know if we don't have anything to believe that it's disquieting. Whereas cherished tradition goes perfect in this context, so we select that. The correct answer here is B and F. Let's read the sentence back after putting B and F. Human nature and long distances have made exceeding the speed limit a regular habit or a cherished tradition. So the legislature surprised no one when acceding to the public demand, they rejected the increased penalties for speeding. So this makes the meaning of the sentence come out, and the correct answer is BF. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the session. I look forward to meeting you in the next class. Thank you.